This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also for the most part unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 102nd time ever, we are live from the Reviewing Network studios on this end of a very, very long, busy weekend for me. Welcome to the Reviewing Network Live. It's that time of the year again. Another Steel City Con has come and gone, and I'm tired, man. It's been a long day. We just finished bringing everything in, putting everything back where it was. We just finished this about an hour ago. So the time of recording this at like 10:30 at night. Yeah, the thing ended at 5, and we were packing everything up. We were splitting everything up for another show that we're doing in a couple weeks from now, but 2 weeks actually. So, yeah, we'll be bringing some more stuff up to hopefully sell it in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, this is probably the latest that we've been doing this. And I think it was because we have that thing coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So, yeah, I'm tired. I just got my shower and everything. So, this week in particular, yeah, it's going to be a quick episode of the show this week. We'll take a look at the weekend box office, and then there's one more thing I want to talk about here. I'll save all the stories that I had planned for this week. I'll save that for next week's episode, so we'll get to that and on the next episode, the stuff I want to talk about. But before we do any of that, of course, we need to go ahead and do what we usually do here at this time and junction of this show, and that is, of course, the top 5 weekend box office. And yeah, it's very interesting weekend overall. Something that I kind of figured was going to happen did indeed happen this weekend, and we'll take a look at that as we go along here. But let's start off with number 5 this week, which was number 3 last week, and that is, of course, the reboot of Naked Gun, which dropped 50% from last weekend, $8.4 million. So far in 2 weeks, it's brought in $33 million even. If you account the worldwide grosses at $56 million, the thing cost $42 million to make. So, I mean, not doing gangbuster business overall, but it's still doing good enough business, and to the point where it's going to make its money back. The movie was very funny. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, terrific film. Not much more to say about that one, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out again at some point, maybe next weekend. But moving on to number 4 this weekend, number 2 this last weekend, and that was, of course, the DreamWorks sequel, The Bad Guys 2. Fell off 53% from last week, $10.4 million, bringing its 2-week total to $43.4 million. If you count the worldwide numbers, it's at $83.9 million, essentially $84 million. And if you want to compare it to the last movie, which was actually the number 1 movie, the second weekend it came out, let me take a look and see if I can find it here. So here we go, the second weekend for Bad Guys 1, $16.2 million, down 32% from the previous week. After 2 weeks, it brought in $44.9 million. So this one isn't too far off from the original Bad Guys movie. So it's about $1 million off overall. And again, I think the reason why this isn't doing gangbuster business, maybe for some people, is the fact that it's the month of August. And more times than not, family films do not usually do very well at the box office during the month of August. Sometimes you'll get an exception here or there, but for the most part, yeah, it's pretty much kind of a given that most family films don't do very well in the month of August because the kids are going back to school pretty soon. And essentially that basically means that a lot of people aren't taking their kids out to the movie theaters as much during the week. Not for the first couple of weeks of the month are fine, but once we get to the latter half of the month, that's when you're going to see the daily numbers start to go down a bit during the weekdays for the family films in general. And yeah, so it's not doing bad business overall. It's just not doing like the type of business that you want to see for a sequel compared to the original movie. But I mean, it's fine. It's gonna do good business overall. So, moving on to number 3, which was the number 1 movie last weekend, the Incredible Hulk. Good lord, I wish, but the Fantastic Four: First Steps, which brought in $15.5 million. Another steep drop from the previous weekend, 60% drop off, $230.4 million after 3 weeks. If you include worldwide numbers, it's up to $434.2 million. And yeah, it's a little bit concerning, but the film is still doing the best business of any Marvel movie this year. And there is a little bit of a sense that maybe there is some superhero fatigue going on. Yeah, there is a cause of concern for the box office in general in terms of superhero movies, but and you got 2 of the biggest superhero movies that people were really anticipating, and they're not doing bad business at all. I mean, Superman, yeah, it's no longer in the top 5 anymore, but $331 million after 5 weeks in release, and a worldwide gross that's bordering on $600 million. I think more than enough people will be willing to accept that, especially considering that this has surpassed Batman v Superman and pretty much every Zack Snyder Superman movie as the highest grossing film in the Superman series in general. So the box office in general is perfectly fine. The drop-offs are a little concerning, but the people are loving what they're seeing. Superman and the Fantastic Four were both highly praised movies with the critics and audiences, so there really is no cause for concern right now. If these movies will do fine, they'll all be everything's gonna be okay. So no problems whatsoever. Which brings us to the new releases this week. The 2 films the big new releases that are coming out this weekend, and 2 movies that where most people, I would like to think, had an idea of where they were going to be at. Some people had this movie I'm about to talk about here, the number 2 movie, going higher than the number 1 movie, but the number 1 movie had better hype and better marketing behind it. But number 2 didn't do too bad, despite the fact that it's yet another pointless sequel that nobody was asking for way after the fact, and that is, of course, Freakier Friday. Freakier Friday brought in $29 million, and the budget on this is only $42 million, so they're more than fine with this. I mean, this is exactly what it's a hit. It looks like a movie that was clearly made for Disney Plus, and then they said, fuck it, let's put it on the big screen. And yeah, it did very well. It didn't top the box office like a lot of people were probably expecting it to do, but in the end, it didn't really matter. And even if you count the 5-day numbers from the original Freaky Friday, it only did about $4 million. That is less than Freaky Friday after its first 5 days in release. It actually did better than the $22 million if you count the 3-day the totals here that I'm looking at here for the weekend of August 8th when the film came out. And again, it opened behind a number 1 movie, that number 1 movie being SWAT, this time around being a movie that we're going to get to in a little bit here. But like I said before, man, I didn't really like this movie all that much, and it's essentially because, yeah, it's a pointless sequel nobody was asking for. Nothing really has changed between these 2 movies that makes this movie valid whatsoever. The only thing that's holding this together are Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. And it's good to see that Lindsay Lohan is getting back on track here. Hopefully this is the beginning of a revitalization of her career after this, and hopefully this will be a sign that, hey, she's still got some potential to her. And I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis, like I said, she was just coming off of that Oscar win with Everything Everywhere All at Once. So yeah, of course this was going to work with they were going to be the best things about the movie. But the movie itself, it just falls into predictable territory for a legacy sequel, a bad legacy sequel, and it just didn't work for me. I didn't really like it at all. So yeah, take that for what you will. But with all that said, let's get to the number 1 movie at the box office this weekend. A movie that I kind of figured was going to do that. And that is, of course, Zach Cregger's Weapons. Now, Weapons opened to $42.5 million. And the budget on this, it's already surpassed its budget of $38 million. And if you count the worldwide numbers, it's over $70 million right now. And this is a big movie because not only did it go on to make that money at the box office, but Warner Brothers is kind of back. I mean, this movie set a new record for Warner Brothers as the first studio in history to have 6 consecutive films open at number 1 with more than $40 million. And those 6 films in particular, that if you don't remember, we just had, this movie, Superman, F1 the movie, Final Destination Bloodlines, Sinners, and a Minecraft movie. So from April until now, Warner Brothers has been on this hot streak, and yeah, it's great and all, and yeah, you can make the argument that yeah, unfortunately, David Zaslav still is running the company, so the scumbag is still running the company as it is, but. I mean, let's be honest, all of Hollywood is being run by scumbags now. Not just Warner Brothers, not just Disney, but now Paramount, of course, because now we have David Ellison, the ultimate Trump-supporting person who's going to do everything in his power to pretty much take away all the fun stuff we love and basically make TV even stupider, even dumber than it actually is now, and nowhere near as fun. But I mean, that's just my thinking behind that. It'll fuck up the movie industry too, so just wait for that. But regardless, Weapons is a really damn good movie, and it just shows that, Zach Krager has joined that list of people who are helping to bring horror back to full form, and it just makes you kind of wonder, how far is this going to go for Warner Brothers? I mean, let's take a look at their lineup coming up. I think the next movie they have is The Conjuring Last Rites. Yeah, Conjuring Last Rites comes out next month, and it's going to be very interesting to see if this movie can somehow do the box office that they're hoping for, because they're opening up in the same period where they've kind of owned the box office as of late, because Beetlejuice was a big hit last year. The Nun 2 was a massive hit a couple years ago. I think another Conjuring movie opened up around this time in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe? I'm not seeing it on here when I'm looking at the list here, but Warner Brothers knows what they're doing, releasing these movies on this particular weekend. Is on the weekend after Labor Day. Like, they have found a way to make these horror films the blockbuster hits that they are, and they have ruled that specific weekend in general for the last couple of years now. I think it all started honestly with the It remake and how well that did, and essentially Warner Brothers has carved that out, and we'll see if The Conjuring Last Rites can continue that tradition as a whole. But after that, some films it's going to be interesting to see how their films essentially do, because they actually only have 3 more movies coming up for the year. Like, their big Oscar contender this year is One Battle After Another, the Paul Thomas Anderson Leonardo DiCaprio movie, which has the big budget of $140 to $175 million. So it's going to be intriguing to see how that film does. I mean, the trailers for it look incredible, and it looks really fun, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that plays out, but it's going to need to make a lot of money to become a big hit, and hopefully it'll get a good enough reception that it will finally get some Oscar consideration for Paul Thomas Anderson. But then after that, it's Mortal Kombat 2, and then they're done until February. They don't have another big new release coming out, Warner Brothers, until February, where you have Wuthering Heights, the version directed by Emerald Fennell from Pretty Young Women, and then The Cat in the Hat on February 27th, which, if you've been seeing a lot of movies lately, you know that they're pushing that trailer everywhere. It's kind of like that, and also Now You See Me, the new Now You See Me movie. They're putting those trailers on every single movie to get you to realize that, hey, this is coming up soon, so you better get ready to see this shit. I mean, unless they actually put something else in there, I don't think I think that's the last one. They won't be back is after Mortal Kombat 2. That's it. They're done for the year. And hey, for all the trash talking I've done with Warner Brothers over the last couple of weeks and years, give them credit where credit is due. I mean, they are doing a very good job of dominating the box office right now. And yeah, hey, they're making great movies. A lot of these movies I really do like. I like a lot of their films, and Weapons was definitely one of those movies that lived up to all the hype. It's a great chilling movie, a terrifying movie, a scary movie, a visually impressive looking film with a great cast led by Julie Garner and Josh Brolin, and it has one of the most chaotic endings I've seen in a long, long time. So yeah, I mean, they did a fantastic job of selling this movie to people, and I'm really glad to see that it did very well. I'm glad that it actually was the best movie that came out for most people this weekend and not Freakier Friday, because, I mean, if you lose to that movie, like, I get the sense that we're kind of doomed as a society at this point, but hey, hopefully this means that but then again, that Freakier Friday still did well enough, but I still get the feeling that we're heading into a dark spell of legacy sequels that people are just making for the sake of, let's make them because we think that people want to see them, and even though nobody else wants to. I still don't understand why they're doing sequels to, like, Practical Magic and My Best Friend's Wedding. Why? Why are we doing this? But So anyway, that's the box office overall, and next weekend's not going to be that overly impressive. The big new release is going to be Nobody 2, which is a movie I'm definitely looking forward to checking out. And I'm wondering how that's going to do, because the original Nobody open just as theaters were coming back into form when COVID happened. And it was the top movie at the box office, but it didn't really make a ton of money overall. It made like $6 million on its opening weekend, but it did go on to have some traction at the box office, and it was successful enough to warrant a sequel. And yeah, the sequel looks like it could be just as fun. I would probably say it's going to do double what the first movie did. I don't think it's going to be like gangbuster business, but as long as it's a fun movie, I'm definitely going to enjoy it. Also, opening up is the new Spike Lee film, Highest to Lowest, with Denzel Washington. And then Americana, which stars Sydney Sweeney, which some people have speculated that the whole American Eagle controversy is a promotional ploy for this movie, which I really don't think that's the case. But other than that, though, the only other movie I see here is East of Wall, which says it's a wide release on here, but I know nothing about this movie in particular, so I can't really say if it's going to be that. But yeah, we will see what happens on that front there. So that's the weekend box office as a whole. So with all that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the last thing I want to talk about here, and then we can get on out of here with this. So like I said, this week was my week off because, of course, I had Steel City Con this weekend. I'll say this. It was definitely a very interesting Steel City Con, to say the least. It was a weekend where, it didn't seem like it was as busy as it usually was. But we did have a lot of big stuff that we sold at our table, and that's what you want to do. You want to get as much stuff sold as you can, to make as much money as you can. Make your money any way, shape, or how. And I think we did just that. But I'll tell you, it was definitely very odd that it was not as busy as it usually is. I don't know if it was just because everyone was enjoying the nice weather out here. Wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold out there. It was a nice, warm, early August weekend in general. So, take that for what you will, but I don't know. There was a decent amount of celebrities for this show in particular. Today we had Mike Tyson, and I haven't posted the Movie Stop episode yet with all the footage I took because I'm literally just getting back from putting everything away. So my first priority was getting this done, and then I'm going to start doing the Time About the Movies episode, and then I'll get to the Movie Stop episode later on this evening, But I did get some stuff, but I couldn't get any real. I was telling somebody that I know that comes up to the show all the time that, they were talking about my videos that I do, and they say that I don't get as much celebrity footage as I usually do anymore. And I just came to the conclusion that, they always kind of yell at people for taking videos of celebrities, so you have to be really sneaky about it. And it was just getting to the point where I was just getting sick and tired of getting people coming up to me and telling me to stop recording. So I just stopped recording overall. I still went around to see all the celebrities and all that, just to see what they look like. And yeah, it was cool to see. Mike Tyson, unfortunately, was behind a curtain. I think they're starting to do that now with some of the real bigger names that they have here. They did that the last show with Hayden Christensen and I say bigger names, but then again, Ron Howard and Henry Winkler, who were literally right next to Hayden Christensen, were out in the open. So I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the company that's coming in to bring these celebrities in here. But I don't know. Maybe it's just that in particular. But Mike Tyson was behind the curtain, so I wasn't going to be able to get him. When you walk into the room, you saw the Full House people there: Candace Cameron, Jodie Sweetin, Dave Coulier, Scott Weinger. They pretty much look like what you expect them to look like. They had people from Harry Potter, Matthew Lewis, Amy Smart was there, two of the people from Young Sheldon, the mother, Zoe Perry, and also Reagan Rolero? I'm getting that name wrong because it's a weird spelling name. It's like Reagan Revord, and like I said, her name is real. Most people spell Reagan Reagan. It's now it's the E and the A are reversed, so it's now Raegan. So yeah, she was up there. The guys from Pawn Stars were there, and my brother-in-law actually got an autograph with them. And actually, it was a picture. They wanted the picture, and so they got that. And then John Cusack was right next to them. Kane from the WWE was there today, and they keep adding celebrities, to these shows at the last minute because I didn't even know Kane was coming. I think a lot of people were kind of surprised when he came. It's just really, he's coming to the show. but because it wasn't announced whenever they did the, excuse me, but when they had the the digital guide that came out, it's just like nobody really knew who was coming to what. Like, I didn't even know that Hank Azaria canceled before I found out on Friday, because I had something that I was going to sell to people to get that signed, and unfortunately nobody was able to. Unfortunately, he wasn't. Is when I looked on the website, it canceled. Just like, that sucks. Because yeah, I was hoping to sell that, maybe to get it signed, but unfortunately he wasn't up there, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. But if you live in the Western Pennsylvania area, or if you just like to come to these Comic-Cons, come on out to the next one. It's coming up around Christmas time, December 5th to the 7th at the Monroeville Convention Center, and I actually have the paper here, the ad for the next show. They've already got some pretty good celebrities coming to this one. Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy, Garrett Hedlund from Tron Legacy, Soraya from All Elite Wrestling, Linda Hamilton from Terminator, which kind of gives me the hope that maybe they'll try to get Edward Furlong or Arnold Schwarzenegger to possibly come. I mean, it's not like they couldn't do it. I mean, last time they had Kevin Spacey come in at the last minute on Sunday. So yeah, Linda Hamilton's going to be coming. So will Robert Englund, Peter Cullen, legendary voice actor, just as big of a legendary voice actor, Frank Welker. I mean, God, how many memorable roles do you remember him? Frank Grillo from the Purge movies, and also he was in Superman and the Suicide Squad. I mean, and that's just the people that are set to come now, and they're going to add more names as time goes on. But either way, it's going to be a real fun show again, and the summer show usually is where you make the most where we make the most money at, because of course it's near Christmas time, and why go to the stores and get presents when you can come out to the Comic-Con and get some cool stuff. And I do have some cool stuff to show you, but again, I will save that for the movie stuff episode. But just stay tuned for that. But I just wanted to tell you what happened this weekend, why it was where I was at. But yeah, that was my Steel City Con experience. So let me go ahead and get to the last thing I wanted to cover, which was of course the new season of King of the Hill came out this week. So yeah, after 15 years, the king has returned, or as Boomhauer says it, "Return the dang old king, man." And he hugs Hank. It's just like, whoa, okay, I'm getting the hug. Yeah, good to see you too, Boomhauer. And it's just great to see King of the Hill back. But it's not just the fact that King of the Hill came back, but in a way, but the way they came back, I think, is really, really great to see. And I wanted to talk about that real quick. So King of the Hill, the new season, came out last Monday on Hulu. All 10 episodes for the first season made it onto there. And, of course, you don't know the story about the new season of King of the Hill. Essentially, it's now 8 years after the events of the original show. And set up from the first episode right away is the fact that Hank and Peggy have spent some time in Saudi Arabia. And they were there working on propane and propane accessories, of course, for Hank, and Peggy's trying to learn other languages, and as tradition, she's not doing the best job at it. But I love how they set up in this episode that Hank and Peggy had more fun in Saudi Arabia than they did when they came back to Arlen, because you see in the first episode, they go to Saudi Arabia, and they've literally created their own version of Texas, like Texas from the 1950s. I can't believe we live in a time now where a show actually took a story element from, of all things, I just had the name of this movie, and I can't remember it. Most people probably don't remember it, but it had John Travolta in it. What's the name of it? The Experts, that's what it was. This bad 1989 movie where they took two guys from 1980s culture and kidnapped them and put them into this 50s town, and the whole town has no idea that what the world has been like 30 years is in the 30 years since the 50s. And essentially it leads into this whole thing where it's just like they're trying to save the town, fix the town and all that. Interesting idea, just not the right execution. It was a movie that literally came and went straight to video in most places, which is very rare for a big studio picture from Paramount. But I feel like they took that element and brought it into this movie, because as we see the episode begins with Hank and Peggy coming back from Saudi Arabia. They return to Arlen, and they find that it is very much different. Airports now look like malls. There's a whole lot of places that they don't know what the food is. Hank doesn't know how to use Uber, and it's actually much easier than he could have imagined it being. And of course, everyone is like the unisex gender and all that. Like there's that scene you see in the trailer where Hank is going to the bathroom and he sees like the men's room and the women's room, and he can't tell which one is which. And that guy comes up going, "Don't worry, they're both all gender." And then of course Hank comes out of there and gets into the car and looks at Peggy, just like, "Are we all gender?" Like that's one of my favorite lines in that first episode, and it's just a perfect sum up of how the show is, of how King of the Hill really has not lost a beat. Hank is still that person that he was when the show ended, but 15 years ago. And so they come back, and so they realize that things have changed all over the place. There's now areas where you can't just go down your normal street to get home. You have to take like a specific pathway because there's all these like cones and all that. Somebody has been living in Hank's home since then. A guy named Brian, played by Keith David, which I thought it was somebody from Dale's Gun Club, but no, it's not that. And they actually do a pretty good job of bringing him into the table and essentially, making him kind of a supporting member of the cast and crew overall. It's the cast of King of the Hill overall. And it's great to see Keith David get another great leading role in here. You see that Boomhauer now has a son that he has from a girlfriend that he's dating. And, he's basically becoming he's no longer the bachelor guy that he was in the original show. Like, he's got somewhat of a family now, and I think they did a pretty good job of handling that. Bill actually has been living in his house since Hank left. Like, there's literally a scene in the first episode where Hank goes to see him, and Bill has been literally sitting in his bedroom in the years since Hank has been gone. And you figure 8 years after the events of the original show, which probably would mean this probably takes place in... Well, actually, it would take place in 2020, after 2020, like 2021 or 2020. It's weird. It's a weird thing because it says 8 years after the events of the show, even though it's been nearly double that since then. But of course, Dale is back as well, and he actually was the mayor of Arlen for literally a day, plus 6 hours. Like, he was literally there for a day and a half, and it's funny how he explains it, because he says that he ran on a campaign of no more masks. This was, of course, during the pandemic, or as Dale calls it, the pandemic. And he literally election frauded himself out of the election and out of becoming the mayor of Arlen. It's just such a funny way of doing it. I can't explain it, so I'll just let him explain it, because it's great.
I was wondering when you'd get around to me.
And of course, that is Johnny Hardwick doing the voice of Dale. And it's of course this is coming well after he passed away a couple of years ago. And you have him, and you also have Jonathan Joss, who plays John Redcorn, and he does show up in several episodes in the show. John Redcorn does, but there are times where the voices actually do split up, because now you have Toby Huss, who was, of course, Cotton Hill, and was also who used to be Khan, Super Newsomple. I'll get to him in a little bit, but he's now the new voice of Dale. And they don't do the thing where it's an episode. It's a thing where him and also him and Toby Huss and Johnny Hardwick. You hear the Johnny Hardwick episodes, and then you get to the Toby Huss episodes. But no, they switch it around, because the third episode of the show is actually the first time you hear Toby Huss as the voice of Dale. And I'm looking at the production numbers here. I think they do switch the episodes around, so it does make a little bit of sense where you see because it says here the production codes EABE1, EABE2, and then it goes to EABE07. And then after that, it's EABE03. So that's kind of what's going on with that thing there. But anyway, back to the whole thing about Dale becoming the mayor and how he got out, because it is really funny.
Dale, how long have you been in that trash can?
I can't be too careful. As a former government official, I am on many nations' kill lists, as well as their do not accept checks lists.
I also like the fact that Johnny Hardwick definitely sounds a lot a lot older. Like, you can definitely tell he does sound a lot older, but he still has that personality that he had back in the day, and you can tell that he probably would love a world without the world since then, with like Alex Jones taking over and all these conspiracy theorists taking over. But let's see if I can get to the part about him running, about being the mayor.
He ran and won on the anti-mask campaign.
And when Bill says anti, I mean anti. No mask for COVID, no mask for tear gas, no mask for catchers.
Who voted for that nonsense?
I did. Mayor Gribble was the devil you know. And I was already used to him following me home, and his chokeholds are weak as hell.
Hey, man, I voted for him just like a dang old joke, man. Just like a dang old high school, man.
And like, I love how his friends were even voting for him, just like, we just did it for a joke and all that. But here's the kicker right here. I love this explanation from him.
With a field of 11 candidates to split the vote, I won with a simple plurality of 9%.
This image of him winning is just great, because it literally looks like he had no intentions on ever winning this mayoral bid. And this picture is literally looking at him going like, I've made a terrible mistake. And I love the caption that says, Gribble mayoral bid wins with only 9% of the vote. I just love the fact that he ran against 10 other candidates. The comment here for this particular scene on YouTube is really great. It says, Dale could have only won if all 11 of them were in a complete dead heat. If a couple of them got less votes, then another candidate would have gotten more than 10%. That is absolutely hilarious, and just this whole image right here is just so well done, and it gets even funnier after you watch the fact. If you keep going, excuse me.
Well, maybe you can do something about all these god-dang no-left turn rules and whatever twig boy had these floppy flex posts installed. Ugh, it's like they want to be a barrier, but they aren't man enough to really go for it.
Nope, don't. I was only in office for 36 hours before I figured out the scam and denied the results of my own election.
He denies the results of his own election and was elected for 36 hours. And I love how, and later on it goes like, I was an election denier. And, that perfectly sums up Dale Gribble to a T. I mean, that is just absolutely hilarious and just so well done. And the jokes in here are so well done, and the whole element of it is just so well done. This was a really, really good first episode of King of the Hill. To the point where you also get, I really have enjoyed what the show has done with Bobby, because now, of course, you see in the trailer that Bobby runs this restaurant co-owned by Chain Wasana-san. And essentially they've essentially become, they're still kind of rivals, but they're business partners too. And, it's great when you see Bobby for the first time, and you see that he's essentially the same person he was when he was a kid, but now he has grown up. He essentially decided not to go to college and decided to focus on this restaurant. And the restaurant people around him, I thought, do kind of admire him for taking this risk. Like, there's this whole scene where, he's at the restaurant working, and he has all these college kids there, and he's talking about how this was his bread and butter, and he decided not to go to college to essentially work on the restaurant. And I think that's actually really cool. And I like the fact that the college people are really actually compelled by this. They are looking at this and looking at this guy. They're not making fun of him for doing this. They're really impressed by the fact that he basically decided to not go to college and basically just focus on his dream of essentially becoming a chef. And there's just great little touches in this first episode where, there's a great bit as soon as they gets invited to this college party where he's going to leave, and Bobby looks at the kitchen and it's a mess. And there's this great moment where Bobby's just like, this could probably wait until tomorrow, right? And you think he's going to go ahead and do it and just go to the party. But then he decides, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go ahead and clean this back room up real quick. And he still goes to the party afterwards. And I like those little touches like that. I like the fact that Bobby is so committed to his job that he is willing to go ahead and do something where he probably could have waited until tomorrow to do this, but he knows that in his heart he has to do it because he's running a business. And essentially he does this, and we do get to see him as an adult, kind of an adult. Like, he goes to this college party, he hooks up with this girl. He's apparently a ladies' man here, because he gets with several girls in this season. And it's funny to see Bobby so shocked still by having sex with these women. There's a great scene in the first episode where Bobby essentially is about to have sex with one of the college girls, and there's this whole great running bit about the fact that he keeps butt dialing Peggy, and Peggy's just like, Bobby, hello, are you eating something? And she has no idea that he's actually making out with somebody. And it's a great running gag it's extended in the trailer. But I love the bit where it's the next day and the girl's just like, I've never had sex with anybody that wouldn't take his shirt off. Like, I mean, that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun and all that. And I like the fact that Bobby is more than willing to accept the fact that, hey, it's just a one-time fling, because she even tells him it's a one-time fling, and like he's more than okay with it. Like, I like the fact that Bobby has matured, and it continues on throughout the entire season. Like, he runs into Connie, and we don't find out until a couple episodes later on that they're kind of in an open relationship with Chain Wasana-song, and Chain and them, like, they hook up, they date, but they're opening up to different relationships. And like, Bobby, he even himself is looking at this going like he really doesn't have any idea how to take this overall. And you can still sense that he does still feel for Connie, and not for his own selfish reasons, but because they were best friends as kids. And as that continues on throughout the course of the show in general. And overall, the first episode I thought really set the tone very well for what they were trying to accomplish with this. I love that bit where there's a great bit where Hank and Peggy are so conflicted about how Arlen has changed that they are contemplating about going back to Saudi Arabia and going back to where they were before, and his boss in Saudi Arabia is willing to offer him a job there. So they go to the Megalo Mart, and they come across these Girl Scouts waiting outside, and they want to get these Girl Scout cookies. And there's this whole thing about how there's this whole thing where they're just like, oh, is it gluten free or something, or is this and it's just like, the Girl Scouts are just like, no, they're just Girl Scout cookies. We're just regular Girl Scout cookies. And there's a whole bit where there's a whole section where like they're trying to explain explain what they have, and Hank is just like, yeah, my favorite one's Samoas, and they say, unfortunately, we don't. They're actually called now. What were they called? And they're called Caramel Delights, and the girl even says, it's more respectful to people from Samoa. And then Hank goes like, that's actually not a bad change. And I like the fact that Hank Hill is the type of person that conservative Republicans wish that they feel is really should be. Like, I like the comments down here that are their comments here are very unique on this whole thing. Like, the whole thing is that he's obviously a conservative Republican, but he is willing to adapt. He makes friends with liberal hippies when he wants to find good steak. And there's a great episode, there's a whole thing about, there's a great episode where Hank and his friends meet Dale's dad, of course, from the original show. And even if he disagrees with homosexuality, he doesn't show any hate towards him. And the way this is all played out in this one scene is so well done. One line in this really does set the tone for how that Hank Hill really has not changed as a person. Like, he is still the Hank Hill that we know from the original show. Like, one line in particular, it's nice to be nice. And again, this is from the YouTube comments. It's literally that. Like, it's not being woke or picky. It's just nice to be nice. And of course, Hank eventually talks to somebody else about something that's inside. It's about this, it was a, what was it called? The Samasil? Let me see if I can find it in this clip here. I have the clip right here. I'm just trying to see if I can see what the name of this thing is this guy's holding.
We'll take one of each. Oh, hey, is that the new Sawzall?
Sawzall, that's what it is. And, he strikes up a conversation with him. And, again, it's a very heartwarming conclusion to a really solid first episode that sets the tone for, and basically tells you that, hey, things may change around here, but these characters are still very much the same as they were back in the day. And I like the fact that Hank, I mean, that's the great thing about Hank Hill in general. Like I said, he's somebody who does love America. He is a conservative Republican, but again, he's willing to adapt, and he's willing to accept change around here. There's a lot of times of that when he is throughout the course of this first season where he's willing to accept change. There's a great episode in the third episode where Bobby invites his parents out to this thing, and Hank's getting on him for not using not using propane, and there's also this other thing going on here where Bobby is getting harassed by a bunch of people that think that his restaurant represents cultural appropriation, and it leads into this great bit at the end where they're having this big dinner. They have Hank and Peggy, and also Dale and I'm forgetting these names now. Like I said, it's been a long weekend, but Dale and Nancy, along with a couple of other people, and the whole thing is that you can tell that Bobby has matured, and I like the fact that Hank has been more than willing to accept when he's wrong, and I like that there's a great bit where Hank tries the food, he swallows his pride literally, and he gets up to go talk to Bobby, and the first thing Bobby says is, bathrooms down at the end if you want to go ahead and spit that out. And I like the fact that I love the fact that he just says, yeah, you don't like my food, that's fine, I'm not sorry for it. And then you see that Hank basically says, the consensus is that everybody likes your food, including me. And it was part of a whole thing where earlier on in the episode, Hank and Peggy and Bobby and Dale and Nancy went to the Bush Museum, and there was this bit where they're in like a simulation of the war room, and Hank has been named the president in that sequence, and he sees that not everybody can agree on a lot of things about the consensus and all that type of stuff. And then and then when they get to the end, like, he uses the things that he's learned to help understand Bobby's way of doing things. And while he may not agree with that, he's more than willing to just accept the fact that he's more than willing to accept him for who he is. And I like the fact that he was willing to this again. Everyone is willing to learn. I love the great supporting character they've added in here in Emilio, who is like the guy that works with Bobby inside of the chain restaurant. And it's a really good addition to the show. I can't remember who the guy is that plays the voice of him. Anthony Campos is his name, and I think he does a very good job of playing that role in particular. And something I didn't realize was that Breckenmeyer is not the voice of Joseph anymore, and now it's this guy Tyler Clare. And I literally did not notice that until doing the research on this. So I thought that was actually a really good job of having these replacements coming in, and you really can't tell a difference. Like, I really did think that Breckenmeyer came back as Joseph, which, by the way, when Joseph is on screen in this show, it's hilarious. Like, I love that he has taken both his birth parent and his parent that has raised him in John Redcorn and Dale, and merged them together. And there's a lot of great bits in there where it is really, really funny stuff. It's very well done, and it just works, man. It's a really, really good addition to the show that they've done. And I like the fact that there are a lot of really damn good episodes in here. And Hank is basically trying to figure out what to do with his life now that he's retired. So he gets all these different odd jobs. There'll be a part where he'll work with Boomhauer on this door-to-door handyman business, and then Hank will become a soccer referee in one episode. There'll be a time when Hank decides to go hang out with Bobby at this fantasy football camp, and Bobby actually dates a vegan in the previous episode. And then in this episode, like, there are episodes that are not as strong. Definitely, I think maybe the ones where I really would kind of like, that one wasn't really all that great, was probably the one I was just about to mention, the Any Given Hill Day episode, where they literally go to the Dallas Cowboys fantasy football camp. They go out to Dallas and Jerry World, and there actually is a cameo by Micah Parsons in there, which I think is very awkward considering what's going on with his contract situation. And there's this whole bit where you find out that Bobby's vegan girlfriend has an ulterior motive, and essentially it's going into Jerry Jones's office and straight up pooping on his desk for reasons that are very odd and very bizarre of why that's in there. I'll say that was an episode that was just kind of like, I get maybe where you're coming from here, but I didn't think that was one of your stronger episodes overall. I thought the subplot with Peggy and the little free library was actually kind of funny, and actually did lead to a fun payoff at the end, which I did not see coming. And that's actually the last episode you hear Johnny Hardwick as the voice of Dale, too. So you get to hear him as that, and then it ends with the in memoriam for him. Probably my favorite episode of this, outside of the first episode, was the one where you see Con again, who's now played by Ronnie Chang from The Daily Show. And I'll be honest, not a lot of people are really liking that role of him, but I actually didn't think he was all that bad. I mean, granted, yeah, it is very tough to get used to at first, but as the episode goes on, I really didn't hate it. I actually thought he did a very good job, essentially, of playing that, of making that character his own. And you find out in this episode that him and Min had been divorced for some time now, and there's this whole thing where they're about to have this 3rd anniversary party, and he talks about how getting divorced is like a much bigger deal than getting than it would be if you were in their culture. And I've got the clip right here. Let me see if I can find it. The clip was on there, but I fortunately cannot find it. But there was a great bit early on in the episode where he talks about how important it is to stay married in this relationship, and essentially they did it, and Connie knew that. She knew that they were already divorced, and it's really one of those things where it's just like, it's a real slice of life thing that really does get you. And it's also an episode where Bobby eventually gets involved because Connie is tired of Chane's open relationship thing, and there's a great moment where Peggy actually is the voice of reason in this particular situation, and you can tell that Bobby overall, like, he's not just being he's not being a guy that's just doing this because, he's not just staying friends with Connie even after he's dating and all that just because, but, he does actually care for these people that are around him. He does care about Connie, and, like, he is willing to actually listen and ask the tough questions. Like, when they actually reveal to everybody that, the truth is out there. There's a great I love this bit right here where Bobby basically comes to Connie and asks her, "Are you okay?"
Are you okay? Of course. This party is going well. Everyone's happy. But are you okay? Not really. But I will be. Thanks.
Yeah, that's somebody that's not clearly doing this so he can get in her pants. Like, that's somebody who literally is caring about the situation and knows that, hey, it's a tough thing going on here. And I like the fact that they do eventually not really start dating until very late into the last episode of the season, but there is that sense that, they were made for each other. They both had loving parents, and they also have a ton of flaws to them, but, you do that. Essentially, that's what most kids do. You learn from your parents' mistakes and try not to make the same mistakes overall. And I love the fact that they did a pretty good job of handling that in here. I thought they did a very good job of putting this all together, and it's just kind of why I've been really enjoying the first season of the show. And I also kind of like that the episode doesn't have a happy ending. I like the fact that Connie's parents are still divorced. Like, it reminds me of, when Milhouse's parents got divorced early on in the first few seasons of The Simpsons. And yeah, I like the fact that they didn't give them the fairy tale happy ending, and this is just something that they're going to have to deal with in general. And I like the fact that they went down that pathway. There's a lot of great episodes in the first season. I like they even brought in Hank's half brother in here, and you get to see Hank's Japanese brother, Junichiro. And it's great to see them early on in that episode. And they essentially, it's an episode making fun of Andrew Tate because it's a guy, good Hank, Hank's half brother. He takes good Hank to this male only retreat that normalizes toxic masculinity against women. And so there's this whole thing where Hank basically has to outwit this guy, and I love that it's a straight up knock at Andrew Tate. And yeah, those guys like Andrew Tate really are scumbags, and basically people who are where they're at right now essentially because of the money that they got, their wealth and all that. And I love how in this episode, when the truth gets revealed, the mother comes in and it literally just breaks this guy down to the point where, everybody turns against him. It's a great moment. It's a really fun moment. There's a great subplot with Peggy where she keeps suffering from panic attacks when she goes in for an MRI, and Bobby basically helps her get through those fears and all that. And again, it just shows the growth of Bobby as a whole, and the show has done a very good job of aging these characters, but never to the point where it feels like they're the same people they were. They're basically the same people they were before, but they have the ability to grow up and actually deal with adult problems. Like, this is the opposite of something like the Entourage movie or the Sex and the City movie, where it comes many years after the show's ended, and the characters do not age whatsoever, because who gives a shit about characters aging and actually dealing with adult problems? Cosmo and whiskey, and let's bang as many women as we can. Woo! And men, too, of course, for the Sex and the City guys, but girls, but you get the idea of what I'm coming from here. This is something where it's just kind of like I really admired what they did here. This is probably, honestly, the more I think about it, maybe my favorite show of the year so far, The Return of King of the Hill. And it's really hard to say that, because, not because of anything against some of the other things I like this year, but it's just been a really good year for television as a whole. Like, I'm looking at my list of the best shows of the year. Severance, Paradise, The Studio, Andor, The Hunting Wives, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Dying for Sex, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Daredevil Born Again, Good Night and Good Luck on Broadway, Mid-Century Modern. So many great shows this year, and just, just good fun times all over the place, man. Like, there's a lot of good things happening on television, even if it's not on a simple cable network. It's more like a streaming service. But yeah, this might honestly be my favorite show of the year so far. I mean, King of the Hill really has returned and has not lost a beat. It really does feel like time has not changed with the show whatsoever. Things are still the same as they were, and it's great to see these characters dealing with modern issues in a way that is just so perfectly well done. And just, I love it, man. I really love the hell out of this show. I love the original show growing up, and this show has definitely gotten better as time has gone on. King of the Hill, man. If you have not seen it on Hulu, definitely check it out, because it's back in full force, baby. It's back, and it's never been better. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get to some recommendations. And actually, come to think of it, there really is not we don't even really need to do that, because honestly, it's not that great of a week in general. I mean, yeah, there's some big new releases, but they're How to Train Your Dragon 2 and The Accountant 2. And I really didn't like How to Train Your Dragon 2, and I was just only kind of mixed on The Accountant 2, so essentially we can kind of just push those to the side. But if you're looking for some good catalog titles coming out on 4K for the first time, or with some nice looking steelbooks, still Straight Outta Compton's getting a nice 4K release this week. So It Follows, two of my favorite movies from 2015. World Trade Center is getting a nice Shout Factory release. The 40-Year-Old Virgin's getting a 4K release for the first time. Meet the Parents is getting a 4K release for its 25th anniversary. 40-Year-Old Virgin's turning 20. Casper's getting a 4K steelbook for its 30th anniversary. So there are a lot of good catalog titles. The new releases this week, not so much. But yeah, I would say of the new releases to check out, get the catalog titles overall. And maybe if I had to pick a recommendation for a new thing, definitely King of the Hill on Hulu is the one I would say seek this show out. So with all that said, that's going to wrap up another episode of the Reviewing Network Live. A short episode this week, although I will say that King of the Hill review did go on a little bit longer than I probably was expecting it to. But hey, at least it'll give you somewhat of an idea of a full episode of this show. But yeah, with all that said, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, check out the last episode I did, and check out our playlist. So we'll back with a full episode next time around, next Sunday night here. So I'll see you guys then. Thank you for watching and listening. And until next time I hear from you, we are out.